And welcome to another episode of Football the Pod. I'm your host, Commissioner Ben. Welcome to Football the Pod, Season 4, Episode 5. Yes, that's right. We are recording on, it's a bit of a late one, Wednesday, September 24th, late in the evening, Vancouver time. I guess it's almost the next day over back in Ontario where we're from. But doesn't matter. We're still 3 weeks in, and already we have league parity at its finest in a wild week where the top scoring player was 40-point Trey Tucker, who was on the waiver wire, no longer. We'll get to that. We now have all three 2-0 teams. All teams started off undefeated after 2 weeks now have a loss. We have no more undefeated teams after 3 games, thanks to a super exciting and consequential Monday Night Football game that will surely leave many buttholes sealed shut for weeks. However, we do have still 2 winless teams. But hey, only 2. That's not bad. And there's still loads of season left. But before we get into all that, it's time for Just a Tip with Commissioner Ben. All right, for today's tip, we listen to our viewership here, and we want a little bit more advanced tips sometimes. Let's throw in some extra long tips in terms of the quality. Let's see if we can get some new knowledge into our community, our fantasy football league, and well, since Nick thinks he's an IRO pro thanks to his O Cup team last year, let's get into it. So, for wins and losses, all we care about is fantasy points. But how do you know if a player's points on a week-to-week basis are sticky or repeatable if you're not into the whole fantasy football slang, whatever. So simply looking at a player's fantasy point output, be it big or small, never tells the whole story. Maybe a player had a bad week fantasy-wise, but still had strong usage going up against an elite defense. Maybe a player had an insane fantasy week, but just happened to catch 2 deep bomb TDs in garbage time, so they got massive fantasy points, but that might not be repeatable. So the first thing to look at, if you're trying to see if a player did good or bad, with underlying stats going beyond just fantasy points now, is targets. So we're talking about any player who can catch the ball. That's wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Targets is the most important thing, in my opinion, because that means if that player is being used in the offense. And the next step is to then compare that player's targets to the targets received by the rest of the team, i.e. their target share, which is the total targets a player receives divided by the total passes a quarterback throws. So a good target share, if you're looking up those numbers, you want to do the little calculation yourself, that probably takes longer, is if you're above 20% target share, that's a good player. If you're above 25%, that's a great player. And if you are over 30% target share for the team, that is elite. And even one step further, which is perhaps the most sticky of stats in fantasy that correlates to a player's fantasy output, TPRR, targets per route run, which is the number of targets a player receives divided by the total number of routes that they ran in that game. This stat shows that the player is commanding the ball when they're out on the field. So some rough numbers to wrap your head around. If your targets per route run is above 2%, that is good, and above 3% is elite. All right, so that's right. Fantasy can start getting real data-driven real quick, or you can just keep playing the top kicker and defense each week and win that way. And that was Just a Tip with Commissioner Ben. And now, for our Week 3 breakdown, we must, of course, bring in the dad whose clenched butthole all Monday night was rewarded with a smooth victory release, my best West Coast buddy, Brent. Welcome onto the pod. How are you doing?
Oh, good to be here. Happy to be here. Long-time listener.
Appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Hey. And just to clear things up, I live in Vancouver. Where do you live?
So I live just outside of Vancouver. I live in a beautiful place called Pitt Meadows.
All right, and we're in about 1 or 2 hours. We're going to meet right in the middle for a hockey game, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, beautiful. And just like that, on to fantasy. We begin with our main segment, the Week in Review, finishing off Week 3 before we jump into Week 4, which of course means we start with the low score. And, well, this week we had two teams who were at least 15 points below everyone else. It was real tight between these two, but Mike was just barely able to hold off on his first Poopy Football award of the year once again, as Sarah needed 7 points from Zay Flowers on Monday Night Football to stave off the poop, but he only managed 3, giving her the Poopy Football award. I hope you checked your bank account for that sweet, sweet set of 10 fake extra dollars. They were already deposited, and you used them well after last night's waivers. So congratulations. And on to our high score, the high score champion of week 3, riding the most likely of sources to the top of the weekly standings, the 7th highest scoring player, or whatever you want to call it, in all of fantasy this week, which was, of course, the 30-point scoring Minnesota Vikings defense, which means that was Christine. Congratulations, Christine. You're the champ of the week. Get your D advice from Christine from now on. And just like that, let's move on into our matchup breakdown. So we will jump ahead to all of you viewing on, well, YouTube or Spotify. We once again bring back the share screen feature. Let's do that and jump right in to our first matchup. Follow along however you prefer. Starting off with, well, once again, first on my screen, because it's me, that would be my matchup against Jason. And, well, we had a bunch of close ones this week, making things real exciting. And while this one was close on paper, it was really done by Sunday night, with Tradwife, Harrison, Butker sealing a deal for Jason after both of our quarterbacks struggled to score touchdowns on Sunday, as Jason took it 135 to 129. Brent, break this one down for us.
Sure thing, Ben. So first things first, the first note I have for your team here is just QB play was just mid. Kyler Murray, 1 touchdown, 150 something yards, no interceptions, but just meh, right? Doesn't really get you much with the 16.606 points. With that said, though, I mean, you still had a decent output, 128 points. You had your defense played well, and you had a breakout game from Jordan Mason, which is cool to see.
I think you're thinking about Jason with those two stats there.
No way. Hold on.
Which might be why Jason won, thanks to his breakout game from Jordan Mason and his strong D performance.
That's actually very funny. This is why you don't do late night stats crunching right before the pod, right?
It's all right. First pod of the year. Yeah, you're rusty.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, that all applies to Jason then. Mid quarterback play.
Flip it around. And
honestly,
then you're correct.
Herbert had almost the exact same mid quarterback play with 16.6 points. Sutton had
I thought you were talking about me at first. That's why I was confused, because Herbert was pretty mid.
Herbert was pretty mid. Sutton had got back into form for you, because last week he had a pretty bad performance.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's looking up for you. But I don't know. I guess it was just too close. It was so close, I confused who was who.
Yeah, I mean, Jason called it himself. Came down to really look at the kicker and defense. I will say, ruled the final score here. Harrison Butker outplaying Brandon McManus by 8 points, and that was the difference. So we'll call it there. Let's move on to the next matchup, which was, if we pull up the next matchup on the screen, scrolling down here, we have the Kittle Titty Committee, Mike, who, as you can now see, has become 0-3 thanks to this, well, mediocre week for Scott, but I mean, he played against a completely listless Mike, who is unable to overcome all the injuries to his onesie positions. That's both quarterback and tight end, losing 120 to 87. Brent, what was the tail of the tape here?
Okay, so this score was actually so lopsided that it's impossible to mix it up. So the good news is, I know with Scott's 120.52 points and his performance from Jonathan Taylor, he took this win quite easily. With that said, though, without Jonathan Taylor, yikes. Not the most confident performance from a winning team. Luckily, he was facing off against such a low score in Mike's team. Penix Jr., tough. that's all I have to say.
Interesting choice of QB pickup and start, I will say.
I don't know what else to say, because, I mean, you chose to go with Penix Jr. He gave you the score that you kind of, that's what you get. With that said, Travis Hunter at wide receiver is a tough play for anyone, because it's like, how much time is he going to have on the offensive side of the ball? He's so good defensively. They're going to be they're going to be leaning towards him playing or pushing on the defensive side of the ball first, it's going to be pretty rare for him to break out offensively, I think. I don't know. But I don't know how it works though, the stats wise. If he gets an interception with a touchdown, does he get
He would not get any points for
yeah,
that. All those points would go to the Jacksonville defense. Yeah.
right.
And yeah. I mean, his snaps have been moving away from wide receiver
Mhm.
towards cornerback on that is cornerback, not quarterback on
Mhm.
defense over the 3 games. And I mean, and he hasn't even really looked good at cornerback. He needs to figure out that position. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really got to focus on one or the other, or he's certainly not going to make it this year. And unless he really gets back to wide receiver, he's looking like a draft bust this year. But I mean, that's the kind of risk that you take when you're drafting.
Yeah. Overall, Mike's team, that's a forget about it week. You just wipe the slate clean, move on to the next week, figure something out. Scott, uh, that's a win, but that's a win you walk away from. You're not proud of. You're telling the guys, we need to get back out there, treat it like a loss.
But at least he's got Jonathan Taylor, the RB1, to fall back on. I mean, if we redrafted right now, I'd probably
Yeah.
take Jonathan Taylor with the number 1 pick. So
Yeah.
looking real good. Let's move on to our third matchup. Brent, this is your matchup. The exciting one that I have to say, well, was extremely exciting for me as we flipped to that. Somehow it was not the tight butthole matchup of the week, but it sure felt like it as it was the battle to the very end. To the surprise of some, David Montgomery outscored Jahmyr Gibbs to lead you to a 136-131 victory. You called that it was coming down to Gibby versus Monty, Sonic versus Knuckles. Tell us how this week came to pass for you.
Well, I mean, obviously Sunday went as Sunday did, and it led into the entertaining Monday night. I think, the main thing to think about here is that at the end of the day, it all comes down to who wants it more, right? And I think we all know that my team can come home confident and say we wanted it more than our opponent did this week, and that goes for Montgomery. I mean, he just said, "Give me the ball. I don't care if you're gonna run, if my opponent's gonna run the ball, if Gibbs is gonna get that handoff all the time or gets most of the touches." He's like, "Give me the ball. I want the touchdown scores for my fantasy team, my fantasy managers out there." And he really showed up with that. With that said, Nico Collins, shout out to him. What a great performance from him. AJ Brown proved that, it is possible to pass for touchdowns in Philadelphia. So that was really
They're
cool.
both back alive,
Yeah.
almost identical stat lines. They both
Yeah.
got you 22 points, top wide receivers on the week.
Yeah. And I mean, with all that said, I think it's important to remember stats are stats, but football is a game of heart and wanting it and winning it in the trenches. That's what we did this week. Unfortunately, I have heard some news coming in that now I don't have a source. I can't give you my source on this, but I have heard that there's a players only meeting happening for Nick's team later this week, whatever that means.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's a meeting between Montgomery and Gibbs being like, you know what? We work for who we care for the most. And we did this for our manager, for our coach. And, well, we know how this went down. You called it. It happened. Let's see one deciding factor from this game. We have to bring back once again the fumble of the week. I mean, it's surprising that a Derrick Henry fumble search on YouTube even brings out the right play.
So many of them.
Look at this play.
Wow.
Derrick Henry fumbles once again, getting the ball knocked out. Bam. Oh, man, just completely punched out from behind. And this Derrick Henry fumble looked like taking that Baltimore game, getting them a chance to actually come back. They had a chance to come back. Sealed the lead with a big Derrick Henry run. Instead, it was knocked out. And right after that fumble, that's when David Montgomery took that ball, rumbled 30 yards back down the opposite way for a touchdown to really seal that victory for you. So,
yeah,
I can listen to that Creed loud song all day, but keep dancing to it eventually. And well, that seals off your matchup. Great finish, nicely done. Oh, we're jumping ahead already to the next week's matchups. Let's get back to week 4. I'm sure to finish that off, Nick is very happy he doesn't have to play you again. He just can't take you down. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Wait till the playoffs for that one. Let's jump
Exactly.
right into Daniel against Aaron. And well, I have to say, well, I'll show you in a second if you're watching. A battle of big points left on the bench, but Daniel kept the good times rolling for a mini 2-game win streak with this 141 to 124 win. And well, let's take a look at this. Aaron's big game, picking up Lamar. I mean, going hard to get Lamar Jackson. But in this matchup, it was Jalen Hurts who outscored Lamar Jackson. Both of them did fantastic. Jalen Hurts just completely turning things around. 3 passing TDs today to match the 3 passing TDs of Lamar. But that rush touchdown for Hurts gave him 35 points compared to Lamar's 32. Still QB2 versus QB4 in the week. Quite similar. But, I mean, if we take a look at the rest of Aaron's roster. I mean, looks pretty strong, but nobody's getting more than, Rome Odunze still getting those 15 points. Everybody else basically falling flat. All the strong players in his roster, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, under 14 points. Nobody's really standing out with a star play. And, nobody really did on Daniel's side either, but at least he got that 20-point bomb from the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just a little bit more consistent. And, I have to point out, let's show these bench players. Take a look here. What is going on with these benches? Top players leaving Jake Ferguson on the bench. I mean, okay, you didn't know CeeDee Lamb was gonna lose. I can't blame you for not playing him over Brock Bowers, but you might not be leaving him on the bench anymore. Daniel with 21 points. He had like 13 receptions, like 15 targets this game. Absolutely insane. And then over on Aaron's side, playing Garrett Wilson. I mean, sitting Garrett Wilson on the bench over like Hollywood Brown, Tucker Kraft, a second tight end. I mean, okay, I know you had Tyrod Taylor, but all Tyrod Taylor can do is throw the ball at Garrett Wilson. He's going to have to catch some of them. Fantastic week for him, one of the top wide receivers on the bench. And swap him in for Hollywood Brown, and that basically gives you the win. So not to rub it in or anything, but hey, I mean, if you don't want Garrett Wilson, why don't you trade him or something? Or go listen to the Just a Tip advanced stat. Moving on to our 5th matchup of the week, where we have, as we can see here, the Gritty Committee against, I can't even, with any sort of confidence, call them the team name that I see here, as Cassie's boys are really looking ugly now, off to her worst start yet in the league, suffering a 129 to 103 defeat. And all right, let's take a look here. I mean, okay, you can't really blame this on Patrick Mahomes. He's been just okay for fantasy. 2 fumbles, though. I mean, 13 points. Yeah, you hope you have a stronger quarterback. You're never going to compare Patrick Mahomes on the average week, at least, to Josh Allen over on Brandon's side, a solid 28 points. And, that was most of the difference. I mean, Brandon's team, just look at these receivers. They're solid all around, getting 22 points from Puka Nacua, who's looking like one of the top 3 picks in fantasy so far this year, certainly deserving of his round 1 title in terms of the original draft. Devon Achane still coming up strong with 16 points. I mean, Cassie only came somewhat close here because of finally the explosion of Mark Andrews doing nothing for the first 2 weeks and then coming out for 2 touchdowns, 27 points. The tight end 2 on the week, I will say, because Hunter Henry went completely off, but nobody played him. I mean, I will say, Brandon, playing the Cincinnati D, okay, you dropped him now, so that was good. A little bit sketchy. I mean, okay, I guess you're targeting Carson Wentz. Cincinnati playing against Minnesota there, but their defense is just not looking good, and their team's not looking good. So not much to say there. Derrick Henry fumbles again, as Cassie is, hopefully not fumbling away this season yet. You better make use of these extra dollars that you are getting. That is fake dollars for Fab. Let's move on to our 6th matchup. Second last, scrolling down here, see these numbers really close. That's because Sean against Eddie, and finally we get to our tight butthole matchup of the week. A bunch of close ones, as you can see, but Eddie just barely snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in this 127 to 123 win for Sean. Well, this one looks real tight, and it was real tight. But going into Monday Night Football, I was real confident that Eddie had this one in the bag. He needed 12.4 points from Jamison Williams, which actually, when you look at his stats, after week 1, he had about a 6-pointer. Week 2 had about an 18-pointer. He figured in a big blow-up game, it was going to be easy for him to get those 12 points. On the first drive, the first Detroit drive of the game, he had 2 receptions for 43 yards, already halfway there after like 2 minutes of play, and then didn't touch the ball again for the rest of the game, providing Eddie with his 4-point loss there. So, yeah. Oh, I mean, well, I did that math wrong. Didn't even need 12 points. I meant to say 10.4 points, not even 12.4 points. He just needed another catch for 30 yards or 2 catches for 20. And yeah, well, you can keep on going down as much as he wants. That's really, I mean, as we can see, this 4-point loss came down to the difference in kickers. 3 points for the Chris Boswell, normally a safe play. However, somehow Pittsburgh scored a bunch of touchdowns this week. And a negative 1 point from the kicker, from Parker Romo for Eddie. And he even made the one stat, the one field goal, one FGM, that means a field goal missed. Missed a field goal from 40 to 49 yards. There's the negative 1 points, sending Eddie to a sad Monday night bedtime. And we move on. I will actually. Let's just point out, I'll give Eddie some positivity. Christian McCaffrey looking like, well, probably the second best pick of the first round, or third best after. Oh yeah, no, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor was close enough to the first round. Christian McCaffrey looking real great. Look at this, 10 receptions for 88 reception yards. Those are the kind of targets you want in fantasy. And Amari Hampton, the rookie running back, looking mediocre early on in the season, but now Najee Harris is out for the year. Sadly, after injuring his eye in that 4th of July accident, now he's got a torn Achilles, and so the backfield is entirely Omari and Hampton's. I'll be expecting many more 24-point plus fantasy nights moving forward. And let's move forward ourselves to the final matchup of week 3. The two teams who chose to have French in their names. Maybe this was, something done in the background. That would be Christine against Sarah. And we end off with the champ of the week. And as it would happen, we already know exactly how it happened here, because Christine barely needed half of her points to take down Sarah, the Poopy Football Award winner, with an easy 147-83 massive victory in the blowout of the week. Brent, what happened between two of our, apparently French league ladies, who I also will mention are both 2-1?
Yeah, I don't know if there's some sort of collusion or something going on here. I don't know if we can look into this, Kamish. Anyway, we'll move on for now. I have some notes here for Sarah's team. I have CeeDee Lamb out bad in caps. That is not good for her. You need CeeDee Lamb if you have him on your team. You need him to be producing a lot of points for your team if you use a pick for him. So that's not good. Also, Zay Flowers, that sucked. 3.3 points, lowest of the season so far. Hopefully it's not a trend that continues, but man, that's
look at that trend for Zay Flowers. It goes from 28 points to 14 to 3.
It's not a good trend, because it just keeps going down. And I mean, people bounce back. So here's hoping, right? Here's hoping. But again, Poopy Football Award, you get the fab dollars or whatever, and so maybe we can make a move there and use that to your advantage, actually, because you were going to probably lose the week no matter what, regardless of having the Poopy Footballer Award or not. Because Christine, that defense, wow, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles, 2 touchdowns. The note I have here, all caps, wow. What a performance. Yep. And to top it all off, the performance from the young guns, Caleb Williams and Cam Scadaboo, just week 3 dominance from the young guys, who I think, for Caleb Williams, he was already becoming a write-off. So it's kind of almost a bold move to be playing him at all in the third week.
Don't forget that Christine lost Joe Burrow last week, who's now sitting on her IR.
Yeah.
Luckily, she had Caleb Williams, who was the top fantasy scoring quarterback this week, to just throw right in there, looking like he could be a fantasy, at very least start for the rest of the year.
Exactly.
Yeah, Christine just keeps on coming up with these recoveries. She lost Joe Burrow to IR, and just plug right in Caleb Williams. Now she's losing James Conner to IR. He'll be out for the season as well. sadly. But she can just plug Cam Scatabo right in, the rookie running back on the Giants.
Mhm.
And I mean, hey, you know what? Good for you, Christine. You finally have a player on the Giants that you can actually cheer for.
Ooh.
On the other side, yeah, Sarah's going to have to fight through some injuries for a few weeks to CeeDee Lamb and Mike Evans. So hopefully she can manage a win or two through that 4 or so weeks of pain and keep her roster afloat. And with that, that's the end of our matchups. I will stop sharing and move on for we've completed the week 3 wrap. That was, I will say, also an awesome Monday Night Football game to end this week of real
beautiful
football. And I mean, I think we should all play fantasy like Dan Campbell coaches. Always going for it on 4th down, being aggressive with your ads and trades. Being tentative does not win anything. And on those notes, got some quick fire questions for you to end things off, Brent. All right. We've had 3 weeks in a row now. Our waivers have already rolled. It is Wednesday. Week 1, the top receiver waiver pickup was Quentin Johnston. $17 he went for. Week 2, we had Troy Franklin, who went for $21. Week 3, Trey Tucker, the biggest discount of all, 40 points on the week, went for $6. Of these 3 waiver ads, who is the top player for their value, and why is it obviously the uncontested $40 for Rashad Bateman?
Well, Rashad Bateman, I mean, damn. That's a great question, Ben. That's a great question. I leave that seems like it's more of a stats guy question than, because I can see you itching to answer that question.
I got nothing else to answer. There's just a lot to process there.
That was a lot going on. He bombarded me with that one. That's okay. I respect that.
All right. Moving on. How many Packers will you have on your team by season's end?
Hopefully all of them is what I would prefer. But that's neither here nor there. Now, I think there's a lot of availability out there for me to consider moves for Packers if anyone's offering.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one on my IR, so Christian Watson will probably play sometime.
Yeah.
Hey, feel free to send me an offer. He's sitting doing nothing there. I only picked him up because I knew you'd want him one day.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's tell the audience, where does your love of the Packers come from?
Born and raised. It's actually I'm
born and raised in Green Bay. Huh.
Born and raised a Packers fan, third generation Packers fan. So it's just woke up and was cheesehead immediately. So always have been, always will be.
This is we know exactly how your head looks. You're part of the family. Right? Great. Now we know. We'll pass this on to Murph when he's freaking out about your team again in 4 weeks or so when he's back on.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. It's going to be great.
Hopefully you got a winning record that gets to make fun of him a little bit. Let's get into one trade talk. We've got no trades yet in the league. So what's a trade that you're looking to make? Who are you willing to give up and for what?
Well, looking at my roster, I wouldn't mind a bit more depth in the running back area. I do have a couple of tight ends. I was actually pretty impressed by Theo Johnson's play when he went in for Goddard. Is it going to be sustainable? I don't know. He's even questionable with the toe injury right now. So it's one of those ones where I could be swayed into a trade if people are convinced that the Eagles passing game is going to make a comeback. I'd be willing to look at either of my tight ends to be moved.
Wow. What an offer! Offering up some low end tight end 1 or 2s for whatever Packer you have that you want to provide to Brent.
With that said, I think this. Eddie knows this as well. I'm never one to shy away from a courageous offer.
You absolutely, yeah. We've made some big deals over the years, and pretty much none of them have worked out well for me. So let's do that again.
I'd love that.
And before we finish, let's look ahead to week 4, since, Thursday Night Football already starts tomorrow or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. We've got some interesting matchups. Myself against Christine, Mike against Sean, you playing Scott, Daniel against Nick, Jason against Brandon, Cassie against Eddie, and Aaron against Sarah. Who are you most looking forward to? What matchup are you most looking forward to this week?
It's going to be the game between you and Christine. As much as I would like to say that the matchup between myself and Scott is going to be fun, I think that's probably my personal rivalry week matchup of the year for me, and that's for reasons we'll discuss off the pod. Um, but for everyone in the league, the matchup between yourself and Christine is the most interesting to me. You guys are both 2-1. You both have solid teams. You're, you know, coming off a loss, but like we talked about, it was a decent not a terrible performance. And we're going to see how Christine's team continues to roll with Caleb Williams. Was it a 1 week burst of fantasy points, or is this going to be a sustainable model?
Great analysis. I really hope Jordan Mason does good for me this week once again. All right, final question. Are we going to win our Plumbers game tonight?
Oh, for sure. We're going to win 2-1 in overtime.
2-1 over. Yeah, that sounds very much like us.
Yeah.
Minus the 2 goals, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, and that's it. Week 3 is over. It's anyone's game in the league. Brent, thank you so much for taking down Nick, paving the way for you to come onto the pod. Any final words heading into week 4? And who do you want to call out to come onto the pod next week?
So final words. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and promote my ongoings, which is nothing other than playing fantasy football. So thank you.
Always love to have you. Yep.
Don't forget to watch the live stream happening tonight of the Plumbers hockey game. Anyone that's looking for something to do late night,
download the Canland Sports app, look up LB Plumbers.
There you go. And then advice to anyone who's playing Nick next week: just continue to have a little bit of heart, and you'll probably win.
Support your team, and your team will support you.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the pod, Brent. Everyone loves to hear from you. And until week, thank you, everybody. Until next week.
Oh, I nominate Daniel to be on the pod, by the way.
Oh, we forgot the second one. No, I mean, that's the obvious one.
That's the one.
I can tag Daniel over and over and over again, and maybe one day he will respond. I even forgot my first question, but all right. Well, that's another call out. Maybe one day I will hear from Daniel. I hope so, too. Yeah. But for that, we head into week 4. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great week.